Okay, so the second video of this week is to try to figure out, or to lay down clearly, I suppose, what it means to say that somebody, or perhaps something, undergoes time travel. And yeah, maybe there's going to be some difficulty in trying to spell out what it is for some things to undergo time travel. So this isn't really mentioned in the textbook, and it's not really mentioned in the philosophical literature very much, but I've been thinking about this a bit, and I'll try to explain to you what I mean. So, okay, but the first thing to notice is if we're talking about time travel, well, what does this word travel normally mean? Well, normally we travel distances, right? So somebody can travel from uh, Birmingham to Nottingham, say, and that's a distance travelled. And what does it mean to say that there's a distance being travelled? Well, it means that the person who's travelled the distance, or the thing that's travelled the distance, was at one place at one time and another place at another time, and it moved. I.e., so travel is just a type of movement, uh, which is displacement of space at different times, right? With one place and another place at different times. So that should be fairly obvious. But then the point is that, okay, if normal travel involves being at one place at one time and another place at another, well, does that mean that we could say that time travel, so suppose now we replace normal travel with time travel, involves being at one time and another time at another? So we had this issue come up before when we spoke about the A theory of time, that, if time itself is said to flow, then it looks like it's got to flow with respect to a second order dimension of time. And we've got a similar kind of a thing coming up here, where it looks as though if we've got time travel, then we're going to need the idea of being at one time at one time and another time at another time. And maybe this is to say, maybe we can just introduce this idea of hypertime and say, well, time travel involves, I don't know, being at one ordinary time at another hypertime, or something along those lines. Maybe that will work out, but it's not the standard way of doing it. The standard way of doing it is to pick up on two different senses of time, which aren't the sense of ordinary time and hypertime, but a different sense. So, I'll talk about that shortly. But look, just to let's just draw out a particular line. The reason why this can't do it anyway, being at one time and another time at another time, is if we just draw out the four-dimensional, the eternalist picture, so all times exist. Let's have, okay, here's 1981, when I was born. Here's 2020, where I am now. And then there are intermediate stages of me along the way, getting a bit bigger. Anyway, you get the idea. Oh dear. I'm not doing some sort of a very long jump over the years. I don't know why I've gone up. Anyway, you get the point. Anyway, so look, I mean, this is just my life. This is how I've lived. I was there in 1981. I'm here now. So look, in 1981, I was in 1981, and in 2020, I'm in 2020. So it looks as though I'm in one time at one time. I'm in 1981 and 1981, and another time at another time. I'm in 2020 and 2020. So there's a sense, of course, in which we're all kind of time travellers. We're all located at different times in the course of our existences. That's just what it is to be a persisting being. But that's not going to be enough to give us what we mean by time travel here. So, this doesn't count as being time travel. What would count as being time travel? Well, okay. let's draw another picture. Let's imagine a little time travel scenario. So again, let's have, well, yeah, let's have me. So I'm born in 1981, and suppose, oops, at some point later today, I step into a time machine, oops, and then I travel back in time to 1900. Well, what would that look like? It would look like this, wouldn't it? And then suppose I continue to live then until, I don't know, 1940, and I'll be an old man. Okay, so, I'm going to have all these stages in between here, as we had before. Okay, and there's going to be stages in between here. I'm gradually getting a little bit older there. Okay. Well, here's the point, right? This would count as a time travel situation. I start here, you might say. I live up to this point. And then the worm that makes up me is kind of broken off at this point and starts back up, oops, there in the past. So it starts back up there. Okay, well that would count as a time travel situation, right? Part of me exists from 1981 to 2020, and then you might put it like this: the bit that carries on after 2020 in fact carries on from 1900 onwards. So there's going to be this link between me at this time over here in 2020 and me at this point in 1900. That is, the mental states and all the rest of it from 1900 are going to match up with the mental states from 2020, we'd imagine. It's like in 1900 I remember being in 2020 and right, being born maybe in 1981, or having a childhood around the 80s. In the same way as if I'd have carried on living into the future here, these memories would have held going back, right? Okay. By the way, one thing that this ought to make us immediately notice is that there's no real sense here in which, on this picture, so this is an eternalist picture, but it's going to look similar on the presentist. I mean, you can't draw the presentist view, but the point is going to be the same. Well, the point is this, that if I travel back into 1900, it's not like there are two versions of 1900, one without me and one with me. It's not like 1900 happened and then if I time travel, then a new 1900 comes into existence. No, if I am due to time travel back into 1900, then there's a sense in which I already have travelled back into 19. It's already part of the past, right? It's there already. If I'm going to time travel, which I think is unlikely. But there's the point. It's like we ought to get away from thinking that there are we'll talk about it, that it makes sense to suppose that you could go and change the past if you can time travel. And in fact, that's going to be one of the major themes of what we're going to talk about. But okay, there we go. That would count as a time traveller. So what's going on? And the way I want to get to the point here is to give you a kind of a thought experiment and see what you think of it. So bear with me, we'll come back to this. So this thought experiment is going to involve thinking about, suppose that what we could do is to take all of the snapshots of, cut out of reality, all of the snapshots of you at every moment of your life, alright? And then put them into all into one big bundle. So that is to say, here we've got you as a baby, okay? Over here we're going to get, so we'll call that like a little snapshot of you. It's kind of, we're thinking literally we're cutting out your physical self from when you're a baby and just sort of presenting that as a stage of you, right? So we'll just call that, I don't know, we'll just call that one. And then the second snapshot of you, when I say snapshot, it's not a photograph, right? It's literally you at that time. The second snapshot is of you when you were a small child, playing with a ball. There's the ball, bouncing it or something. Okay, we'll call that one 2. We've got the third one here, and it's a little snapshot of you as an old person. So, usual, the walking stick. Then we've got another snapshot of you here from your middle age. You know. So there we go. What happens in middle age? If you're like me, you'll get a bit of a belly. Okay, so that's number 4, and so on, right? But we do this for every single moment of your life. So imagine we've got them all laid out like little cards, 5, 6, and they're all jumbled up, right? So it goes from baby to youth to old age to middle age, and they can jump around. So you've got all these snapshots of you, or cutouts of you from each moment of your life, and then the question is going to be this. Imagine you've got all these. Could you reorder them? So, could you place them into order? Like a big jigsaw puzzle. Like a jigsaw puzzle of your life, right? That's the sort of thought here. And I think you could, right? Because the thing about people's lives and the way they develop is they fit together in various ways, you know. I mean, so for example, somewhere, suppose over in, and there's going to be a lot of these little pictures, but over in number 10 billion, 500, 10 billion, blah, 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 whatever it might be, a big long number, is one where the ball, so physically you look very, very similar to this one in number 2. If you check out your brain states and your mental states, there'll be a kind of, you know, similar kind of mental states going on, right? You're going to be able to place, well, let's just say that's 1,000 for the sake of argument. You're going to be able to say, well look, 10,000 goes somewhere near the 2, right? You can put those two together. So, do you get I hope you see what I'm getting at. It's like, if you had all these snapshots, you could line them up so that it forms the full series of your life, right? From beginning to end, in the right order. And you wouldn't really need any external indication of what times these were happening at. You'd be able to kind of just put them together into a, I hope it makes sense, into a series. And that suggests that there is something that we can call personal time, right? Which is to do with the way in which you develop, right? And it's completely separate from what we might call external time. External time is just time as it's measured in the actual world, you know, sort of the time as we normally think of it. But personal time is just to do with the arrangement of your bodily states and your developmental states in the normal order, in the order that we would ordinarily think they go in. And there are lots of natural processes which underlie this. So, you know, bodies age in a predictable way, hair grows, nails grow, you know, and things just change over time. As I said, you know, you'd soon be able to put all these things into order. Okay? I don't think you'd ever be confused and put an old man step in the middle of, you wouldn't put number 3 between number 2 and 1,000, for example, would you? And we know that. So, if we define personal time in terms of the stages of a person and the changes that ordinarily go on, it's fairly clear that, you know, if you took most of our lives and did this snapshot thing and put them all together, so we imagine at the end of this process, you know, you've got these suggested, let's just draw them out. You've now rearranged it, right? So you've got the baby one at the beginning, oops. You've got the youth playing with the ball, then you've got the middle-aged one, oops. You've got the middle-aged one, etc., etc. You know, you'll have a lot more than this, but you get the idea. And the point is, suppose you'd arranged all of those, and then you said, okay, now let's have a look how those were arranged with regards to time. Well, it would generally be linear. It would turn out that this arrangement would, in fact, they would have been instantiated, right, along the ordinary external time dimension. So we can think about the ordering that these go into as being personal time, and we can think about this as external time, which is just, time as we know it. And generally speaking, if you put these into order and then put them onto where they actually appeared on the timeline, personal time and external time are, broadly speaking, they're going to match up, right? They're going to be in line with each other, because none of us, in fact, time travel. Now, if we go back now to the picture of what time travel looked like, something like this, well, what's happening here with personal time? Well, personal time carries on as it normally would up to here, but then it goes to there. So you get this sort of, right? This bit here should follow this bit here. If you were taking the snapshot of this person's lives and you were lining them one after the other, you'd put this bit and this bit next to each other, right? You'd put this after that one, right? But they're not matching up when it's laid down on external time, right? So there's the key idea here, that time travel occurs when you get a discrepancy between external time and personal time. So, if I travel back to 1900, then, well, in 2020 I can say something like, oh, in a few minutes' time I'm going to be in 1900, and that makes sense. But when I say in a few minutes' time, I don't mean a few minutes of external time, I mean a few minutes of personal time, right? So that's it. That's really the idea. Time travel then is going to be, is it this one? Yes. Being at one external time, at one personal time, and another external. In fact, it doesn't quite work like that either, does it? But it certainly involves this distinction between external time and personal time. So maybe we can put it like this. I'll rub that out. So it's going to be time travel occurs when there is a discrepancy between external time and personal time. As a rough idea, you can suppose that, imagine everyone was born with like a wristwatch that tells the time, date and time, right? And it starts at the point when you're born, and it just starts ticking by. So, by the time I get to here, my wristwatch will be reading, it'll be reading 39 years, right? And then if I time travel back to 1900, well, I'll tell you what, no, suppose it just started on, so it will be reading 2020 here. And if the watch just ticks on as normal, then over here it's going to be reading 2021. Now, if we think about that as giving your personal time that just started when you're born, then you've got a discrepancy in personal time and external time. That's rough. We don't need the wristwatch there. We can think of external time as being given by the way your body develops and, right, the changes that go on. But I hope you get the idea. So, yeah, just to mention this, the most famous paper on all of this material, on the philosophy of time, on time travel, is David Lewis, and it's called The Paradoxes of Time Travel. So he talks about this idea right at the beginning, about how to, I'll certainly put this one for you to read. I think it's, this week you should at least read Lewis's Paradoxes of Time Travel. But yeah, okay, so that's what time travel is. So hopefully that's clear enough, and we'll, so in the next video I'm going to start to introduce the paradoxes. So far What we've done is we've said time travel involves a discrepancy between external time and personal time, and our question is it logically possible for this to occur? Alright, thanks all.